I'm live, it says. I was seriously sitting here talking to myself for the past like 5 minutes, being like, can anyone see me? I didn't realize that after I quote unquote joined on camera that it hadn't started the broadcast. So hello everyone. Let me go mute myself. I can hear myself talking in YouTube as well. Where's my, we have people in here? Yes, hi. Oh, I can see the chat. What's everyone doing? Hello, thank you for joining me on this wonderful, fantastic evening of celebration where we have 10,000 followers or subscribers. That's gone up. That is now, I think, 11,000. That's insanity. Literally insanity. I wish I could put on music, but last time I did that, I got kicked off live. Copyright. Hi. Oh, okay. So we got Courageous. We have Mother Victory. I roped Mother Victory into making sure to be here because we got 60 something thousand views on one of our videos. So it's partly Mother Victory's fault that we are here. And Courageous, hi. I love your content. Thank you. No, you. Hi, Everlasting Show. Caleb, haha, gay. Yeah, accurate. Let me start. I'm gonna be on TikTok live, but I'm not gonna be responding to them. So let me start that real quick and just like get people over here because my video has been trashed by trolls, so it's not going to my followers. But I do want my TikTok people to know that YouTube exists. YouTube. Sorry, I will see your chats as they come in. When your live ends, it'll be okay. How do I add a green screen? Trending tools. Green screen. Okay, cool. Yay! All right, so let's begin. How's everyone's night going? I will be doing question and answer topics, like whatever you want to say. Just type it in the chat and I'll grab it. We're going to have guests coming in and out throughout the night. I've never used StreamYard before, so bear with me. Hi, Caveman. You love my content? Thank you. Congrats on the subs. Thanks, Shia. Yes. So the plan has always been for this new year to start a new kind of channel, I guess, and we're on our way to doing that. So stick around because we're going to have people coming and doing full interviews specifically around like religious trauma, ending it, and how we can, I guess, try to like just be a beacon for other people. Because I know just by sharing stories, it assists in helping other people. You know, that's what I've learned, at least, in doing my content. I have people joining that live too. But yeah, so what do you guys want to talk about? This is your show. This is thank you for following. So I'm gonna sit back and let y'all take the wheels on terms of like content. I do not have a mirror, and this is really messing me up here. I just wanted to get my face even. I don't know how to do anything backwards. I don't know how people do it on camera. Oh my god. Which side is that? Okay. Anyway, I'm just this is Bulldog. I'll mute pretty quickly if you're rude. You can disagree, but not be a bully or a bigot. Yes. So the way that my live stream works, people, is you're allowed to debate. I love debate. Critical thinking, get on it. You're even allowed to disagree with me and say whatever you want. Say that God made the sky, therefore everything I've ever said in my life is incorrect. I do not care. But you are not allowed to be homophobic, transphobic, racist, a bully to other people or me. That's what will get you blocked. And no spam, because we'll give you warnings. But if you keep spamming, then bye. And yeah, so that's what's up. So I already kind of went over the fact that we're going to be doing a live show planned for the year. And outside of that, we're going to be doing more long form content in the form of series. I want to do one series release per week because I know sometimes having my videos at like 10, 11 on a subject can get extremely exhausting to try to catch them and scroll through. So we're going to be doing more of the compilation posts. But the goal in life is to get hours so that hopefully I can become a YouTube partner and not have to struggle one day. You know what I mean? Um, you've been curious about where you learned all this. That's a good question. It's a question I get a lot. I just did an interview with a magazine. More information on that soon. It's a big one, but I don't want to say anything in case it doesn't come out. But that's always the popular question. Ignore how bad just the cover up looks. It's not real makeup. I just wanted foundation or CC cream. So where did I learn it? So I mean, I grew up in the Christian Baptist Church. That is my pedigree. When I was a teenager, I went from being a Southern Baptist to non-denominational due to some rifts in the church and some splits that happened. And from there on, I started my deconstruction journey probably when I was like 15 or 16. And yeah, started doing this whole TikTok thing like 2 years ago, which has been fun. But I didn't learn everything in like one set place is what I'm getting at. Like there's no people ask me for sources a lot too, like what's a good source? And I'm always like, I don't have a place to direct you. So it depends on the topic, it depends on the question. I research everything just by talking to people is where I get my ideas from. And through the comments, I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Let me find out what's going on here. And then I just go and read up on it on my own. So it's just through conversation. That's where I learn things. Conversation and questions that come up in my head I never thought about. And then going to find different outlooks because I like to do as many sides as I can or try to do critical thinking experiments that spins the topic if I can. And yeah, that's how we learn. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Hi, Runes and Ravens. Hi, I'm a religious gay, but people at my church are very strict about things, especially LGBTQ people. How can I get them to understand or try to help them grow closer to the truth about the Bible? Here's what I would say to that. If you're at a church that is affirming or not affirming, this is for everlasting, but also everyone, anyone who goes to church. If you are at a place where they do not accept you as you are, not because you're a liar or because you're mean or doing something that's actually harmful, but if they don't accept you for what you are as just being a gay person or on the queer spectrum of anything, you should leave that church. It should not be your job to try to have them understand you. A church is already a place where you're supposed to go and be accepted from day one. And if that's not the case here, then I would recommend finding another church. And I know that can be hard, especially if you have a community of people and friends and family, but you don't need to be in a place where you're supposed to be spiritually growing and learning. You don't need to feel like you're not wanted. That blocks your progress. Why is it trying to get me to slide my filters? And I feel it's been said, but your green screen image is backwards? How? It's not backwards to me. Sorry, 1 second. I got distracted by TikTok. I don't know how is it backwards? Oh, well, we're gonna have to figure that out. It's reading live on YouTube to me. Can I teach on Romans 127? We can get into it. I've definitely done Romans 127 on our podcast we used to have, the Unholy Trinity, where we got into it more. If you go to that page or that channel on YouTube, you'll find the videos on the clobber verses is where we cover that. Because I'm assuming 127 is that about the shall not inherit the earth. Is that verse without me Googling? Hi, gay Satanists. Your understanding is much better than most religious people I've met. And that's the thing. I'm not a professional. You know, I want people to go out there and research on their own. The fact that I have like a better understanding than most religious people, I can't say I necessarily agree or disagree. But what the case is there's a lot of religious people who don't research. And that's why I started my entire account. I say all the time, you'll see me copy and paste it. I'll say, I do not care what you believe. You can believe absolutely anything you want. It doesn't have to be right to me. I don't believe in an ultimate truth as is. But the one thing that I cannot stand is people who don't research their beliefs. Especially say if you're a person who goes to church once a week and you listen to the same pastor and their same viewpoint every single time, and you do no work on your own to look at the culture, the history, the language, the context, that drives me up a wall. Because then people talk as if they're coming from an educated point of view because they'll say, I'm a good Christian. End of story. They do no work. And so it's not that I'm smarter than religious people or anything, or people who are still in the evangelical church, I should say. It's just that I do a lot more reading and research, I guess, than a lot of people do. Hiking. Oh, I miss. I have an honest question. What do you think about Romans 1:25 to 29? There's a lot of Romans 1:25 through 29s coming up, so we'll talk about it tonight. Let me get to a place where I'm caught up with comments so I can pull up the actual verse and we can go over it step by step. Da-da. You're watching on TikTok, but yes, the chat is on YouTube. So thank you for coming over, Chris. Uh, how old are you? Just confirming if you're a minor because they don't always have a choice. That's true too. If you are a minor and you're stuck in a church that doesn't affirm you, I still would say it's not your job to fight them and get them to accept you. If you're stuck in a church that doesn't affirm you, but you have to go because you're going with your parents and you can't make a choice of church, ignore them. You know, like that's, I know it sounds stupid and sounds like passive, but people are so set in their ways that it's not worth you going against your entire church. It's just going to cause more pain for you. And that's what I'm trying to look out for. Not that you should always correct people if they're being blatantly bigoted, right? If they're saying something that's harmful or threatening to a group, call them out on it. But on the day-to-day stuff, just like let it fly until you can find a church that is accepting. Oh, well, I always disappear. My hair cannot recognize me on the TikTok thing, so I disappear. I still don't understand how it's backwards though. I'm gonna take a screenshot of it and show y'all because it's just, unless I invert the whole thing, but I can't use two different filters. I can't use the green screen filter and invert. So, uh-oh. Um, Where I live, every Pride event has had fully affirming churches with booths for queer people who are still religious. Here's the thing about Pride, or specifically, here's the thing about religions that show up at Pride. Be wary. So I would talk to them, especially if you're like interested in getting to know what their religious beliefs are. Like check out their booth. Sure. There's tons of gay Christians and there's tons of even just gay services specifically. Um, Gay church services. So check that out. But I've seen a lot of affirming churches who go out of their way to show up at Pride and make posters and then do the whole thing for public appearance, but they're not actually affirming. They're the ones who are like, oh, we can't have any gay ministers because that's not right with the Lord. Or we can't have any lesbians on the board of finance because it's not right with the Lord. So make sure that they're not just affirming, but they're actively queer accepting because that's the two different things, really. What do you think my marriage is? Oh, I must have missed something on the marriage. Because 6-year-olds don't tell the story. I'm missing something. Okay, that's just it. Most Christians and Catholics are just that in name. They don't actually follow their so-called beliefs. That's the while it's true, I would be wary about saying that because it's essentially a no true Scotsman fallacy, right? Where you're like, they're not real Christians. Oh god, we have so many homophobes on the TikTok side of things. Again, if you want to actually talk to me, you're going to have to be on the YouTube side of things. But I love their chat going on right now. They're doing the whole, why do you talk like that? Why do you talk like that? Babe, talk like what? This is the hottest voice you've ever heard. I'm not going to flip in my customer service voice, but that is sexy. When I'm like, hello, thank you for calling Walmart. How may I help you today? Hot. But we're not going to do that. And also, if you want to know why gay people talk like we do, it's actually a social evolution thing. It's a sociology concept. So if you would like, there's a documentary called Do I Sound Gay? Highly recommend. If anyone hasn't seen it, it breaks down why gay people have a sound, whatever that means. And it's a self-defense mechanism. It's how we find each other. It's how we know we're safe. My church specifically, it's hard to call out our pastor because we watched Life Church online and you can't really call them out. Well, that's the good news too. If it's an online church and you really don't like the pastor, you can just leave and find another online church, right? I don't know if there's like some weird churches that have subscription models where you have to pay them a membership fee. I've seen it. I was part of one as a child, so I didn't have to pay, but my mom did. And I would say take that subscription fee and run. I believe that marriage is between two people who really love each other, but the normal heterosexual marriage is being shoved down my throat so much it's awful. Yeah, I agree with this statement. Why are they always shoving and promoting normalcy? Like, what is a normal anything? There's no such thing as a normal relationship, let alone a normal marriage. Like, everybody's going to be in their own relationship, doing their own thing, and the only people who know what's going on are the two people there. So it's weird to promote this nuclear family. This is what it should look like. Here's how you should act. I think you are beautiful and hot. Ooh. Hi, Pat. I'm a gay man, former Roman Catholic priest who still loves Christ. Rad. So you said former Roman Catholic priest who still loves Christ. Does that mean you left the Roman Catholic Church? Is that like part of the deconstruction that you're on? Because I would love to hear about that. I don't think I've ever met a Roman Catholic priest specifically who has stepped away. So I think that's an interesting story. You should hit me up so I can have you on the show when we start doing the interviews. Because I'd be fascinated to know why and how that happened. Again, I might be making this up just from that one sentence, but that's a good story. I've met some Roman Catholics, like congregants who have left, but never a priest. The TikTok side was awful. No, so here's the thing. My TikTok is under attack right now by people who are roughly 12 years old, and they are the worst. Like, I won't lie about it. They're just the worst. I don't know. There's like 15 mentions. So somewhere, some person stitched me and said something. And I was talking to my friend group earlier today, and I was saying I will always know what the video's about without even watching the video they tagged me in, because all the commenters that come to my page leave the same type of comment, if not the exact same comment. So today, everyone has just been leaving, aren't you 30? What are you doing here? How are you telling kids to behave when you're old and wrinkly? And I'm like, okay, so I guess whatever video was out there, someone said I'm old and therefore shouldn't be on TikTok. That's the vibe. Last time it was Faith saying that Christ invented masculinity. And so every comment for the next 3 to 4 days was Christ invented masculinity. Didn't you know that God isn't feminine? Christ is masculine. Just variations of that. They have no real mind on their own. They just copy and paste and go around in little troll groups. It's depressing. It depresses me because I want to have fun and I want to talk to people who have good faith questions. And whenever my account gets troll accounted like that, where they just copy each other, there's no conversation. There's nothing happening. I'm talking to a wall and it just takes out my entire night because how do I respond to those kinds of comments? I don't. I delete them. Next question. I went to progressive social justice focused Jesuit university. They taught us the same things you do. That's the thing. When you go to like seminary schools, or if you're going to go to a progressive university, you're going to hear a lot more about the topics. Like, these topics aren't mine. I didn't invent them. They are just what scholars talk about. And these are conversations that are happening, you know? So yeah, when you go to seminary, you'll be pleasantly surprised that their content is like my content, because it's history. It's not opinion, it's history. There are opinions sometimes, but I would love that, and it is a great story. Awesome. So DM me on anywhere, probably Instagram, and let me know so we can connect. Hi, Titan. Yay, how are you? I didn't know if you were going to be here. It's a pretty dumb concept. Just because a platform is young doesn't mean the people who interact with it have to be young. It's not even, I don't think they care. I think that's just, again, they heard it in a video and they just repeat stuff. They don't actually care how old anybody is on the platform. It's just they don't have an argument of their own, but they know they want to say something because they want to be a part of whatever they think's happening. So, meh. Teenagers. I'm closeted, and my gripe with religion is that it soon becomes less about analyzing and reflecting on your beliefs and more about giving into societal pressures, which sometimes push by toxic peeps. Yes, you are correct. So that's the problem. Like, religion in and of itself, beliefs, faiths, all of things within that realm are fine. Like, they're innocuous, right? Unless, of course, they're harmful beliefs. But to be in a religion and to want connection is not bad. To want answers to the meaning of life, to try to improve yourself and be a better person, none of these are bad. It's what happens when it starts becoming a social norm and it starts becoming like, I mean, we see how Christianity is the status quo. It's the default. It's what people consider normal. And then anything outside of Christianity, be it Islam, be it paganism, be it atheist, anything that's not default Christian becomes a us versus them. And even within the churches, it's an us versus them. That's why there's 43,000 denominations in Christianity across the world. They pick one little thing, whether it's like an atonement theory or when the actual celebration of Easter should be, the day before, the day after, and then they will fight themselves to the death for it because it's a social marker. My favorite explanation of this, one second, let me take my drink. So it's a little bit of an extreme example, but if you think about Mormonism, in Mormonism, they have what is called the words of wisdom. And inside the words of wisdom, that's what would tell you you're not allowed to drink alcohol. You can't have hot caffeine. It's those sort of rules that are set up and everyone knows about, oh, the LDS people do this. The reason they do that isn't because it's commanded by God. It's not in the Bible. It's not in their Book of Mormon. It's nowhere in their religious texts. And yet the words of wisdom that come down from the prophets are strictly to separate the groups, where Christians who are Protestant over here, they drink coffee, they drink tea, they do that, but we're different. We can't drink coffee. It's just to separate the groups and create more of an us versus them divide. And so when you see that as an extreme example in Mormonism, you start to see it within evangelical Christianity as well. Why don't I shut down my TikTok feed if it's all trolls? Because I need to go live. It's not the live that's actually all trolls. It's more so the comments on my videos. Like, I'm not reading these, so I don't care. Might as well get my hours in. Dad pulls on. Hi.
Hey, there we are.
You're no longer backstage.
All right. What are we talking about?
Okay, well, firstly, I want to do a shout out to Peyton. Hi, Peyton. Happy birthday. Oh, thank you for spending your birthday night here on my chat.
Happy birthday, Peyton. Yeah, what are you doing here?
No, don't say, what are you doing here? Yes, of course they're here. This is the place to celebrate.
You're right. You're right.
Ooh. Yeah, so do you have any questions? Anyone who wants to do like an actual academic question, Captain's here, and he'd be better at that than I am. I'm all about like, how do we love each other? And your strength is much more like, this was what happened. in 1839.
This is what's bullshit. This is what's not so much. I just got done meeting with my local group of non-believers. And it's mostly old people.
Love that.
It's exhausting. They're very sweet, but they're very, very talkative.
Oh, I thought it was going to be like the opposite, like kind of laid back, and you're trying to get information out of them.
I was trying to do that. There's a couple in there that they're very, very rambly, and they'll just talk forever about like this. One woman talked about what it's like growing up being left-handed for like 15 or 20 minutes. She just wouldn't. We're all just sitting there like, oh, again, trying to be nice. Very sweet lady.
I mean, people have real trauma over that. Like, I know they do. My dad is left-handed, and he was beat. He used to go to Catholic school, I guess, growing up, which is weird. I don't understand my dad's life. He was born and raised Jewish, right? Like, his brother's name is Moshe. I don't say the Moisha. It drives me nuts when people do, but like his brother's name is Moshe. His name is Yash Omar. Like, they were super Jewish, and they got sent to a Catholic private school for their beginning years of school, because I think it was part of like my whole grandma's let's play white thing. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know why else they went to Catholic school, but he got beat for being left-handed.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Hi, I'm new. It was. Hi, and new. Lulu, I have a question. Are you religious? When did you start studying the Bible? Okay, so this is a good question that I should answer. I usually have to do it like a couple times throughout. I'm looking at the TikTok screen as well so that they know. The answer to that is I don't speak on my personal beliefs on my channels. Sometimes, yes, I will in talks. Like, for example, we're doing the Decon 2023 in a couple weekends. If you don't have your tickets yet, get them there. I go more personal in podcasts and seminars, things like that. But on my social channels, I don't ever ascribe to a certain belief, and there's a reason for that. The reason being I want to act as sort of a projecting board. So whenever I present content or ideas, I don't have to say this is true or I believe that. And it's to open up a conversation and have people be interested, hopefully, so that they can go research on their own. Whereas if I were to like say, oh, I'm a Methodist, people will instantly be in those comments, be like, oh, of course he's a Methodist. That's why he does all this and dresses up like he's gay.
Yeah.
Or if I said, oh, I'm a Christian, then all the atheists would just not take any of my word. If I say I'm an atheist, then all the Christians won't take my word. So I like to be a neutral landing zone where I don't tell anybody what I believe, but instead say, what if? Which is why I can do a video about Jesus being gay, and then a video about Jesus being married to Mary Magdalene, and then a video about Jesus being asexual, and none of them contradicting because I don't have a belief and I'm not telling you which I choose. If that makes sense.
Yeah, just what if this? What if that?
Yeah, what if?
Just entertaining different ideas.
Yes. Okay, so I don't know. You were about to say something. I cut you off.
This, why do the 12-step programs in AA involve believing in God? That's a good question.
Ooh, good question. Do you have
an answer? I don't know the history of AA. It's how it was founded and everything. Well, then you answer this question because I don't.
So I grew up in AA. My mother was an alcoholic, so I've been in the 12-step rooms since like the age of 7 until I could stay home alone because I hated sitting there during everybody's talks. But the man who founded it, he was like a revivalist. I think he was like in the 1800s. I don't know super a lot about it. So he wrote the Blue Book as a specifically Christian-inspired way. The 12 steps that he born were all taken from the Bible directly. And he wanted to have a way that Christ could influence people to be saved through sobriety. So if you've ever read the Blue Book, it's very, very Christian God heavy. Once it started growing and the program was accepted like in the medical fields as a good way to actually work through alcoholism, there's a lot more people who weren't Christian that are joining. And so they had to kind of retweak the things so that it's not as Christian, but it's instead you have to have a higher power It could be any higher power that you choose, that you can give your life up to, and know that you are being judged by that higher power, and that's your ramifications for falling short. So the shame shouldn't be on you for having a disease. However, you should be ashamed if you break that higher power's care, but know that you can fall back on higher powers so that they can cure you, or not cure you, but help you through the alcoholism. So it started super Christian, and that's why you still see a lot of like the Lord's Prayer at the end of every meeting, and you see a lot of that still weaved in. I've checked out even secular AA groups, and they can't get out of it. Like it's built into the 12 steps. Even if you go to a secular one, like they have to talk about higher power, or else like you can choose music. My mom's best friend, she is an atheist, and she's like, my higher power is singing. I love singing. It makes me feel connected and grounded, and that's my higher power. But yeah, I don't subscribe to AA.
That's a good gauge to like your personal mental health. Like how often are you engaging in the activities that you usually enjoy? Like
I think it should just be that plain and period.
You're tapping into your higher self or whatever.
Exactly. Take out the God or any kind of language around a savior and just make it, what is the thing that you feel best at, or when are you the happiest, and are you taking self-care, or is it baths? Are you taking a bath once a week to unwind? Like, what is the thing that you need to focus?
Titan, TikTok immigrants, welcome to the superior platform.
TikTok immigrants, welcome to the superior platform.
Tell you all, YouTube is coming for TikTok.
Oh my God. As soon as I have enough hours here, I am probably ditching TikTok entirely. Like the fact that I have a video that can't get over 500 views because trolls search out my account, and that's it. It doesn't go to my followers. It doesn't go to my friends. Hi, people. Is exhausting. So I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to ditch it and do YouTube only and throw some backup.
I still get pretty good views on TikTok, but I don't get paid like I used to.
Like you used to? What were you getting paid? I've never gotten
paid well. I used to make somewhere between like $30 and $60 a month. Not much. Sometimes more. Not a lot. But it was something.
On TikTok.
Now it's like, yeah. It's like now it's like this month I got like $5. A month before this I got like 15. So it's like they're
I think that's more than I'm getting.
They're not adding to the pool to pay their creators. So it's like I'm not motivated to make content.
It's not a way to actually make money and try to survive. So that's why I'm like, I spent 2 years building up my TikTok platform. I would have been so much further, I think, if I had started just on YouTube and only focused on YouTube. But at the same time, I feel like TikTok has taught me skills and really owned a direction for me that I probably wouldn't have fell into with YouTube. So it's a win-lose, but yeah. Do we know when the stream will start?
TikTok's a good way to experiment.
Is the stream. Can you all see us? Random Nerd says, do we know when the stream will start? Huh? It's here, I hope. Okay, wait, I had another question. How do you feel? This is a good one for you, Tap, I think. How do you feel about the Roman Catholic Pope? The current one, I'm assuming, not the dead one.
I feel bad. Oh, the current one? I don't know. I don't follow his career very closely.
I know, me neither.
Yeah, I don't know.
Here's what I do find interesting. I find... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think the entire papacy thing is a joke. It's not biblical even.
Yeah.
It's just a control mechanism that developed largely in the in Rome after it was conquered by Constantine. Before that, it wasn't like it is now.
Nope.
And then it grew and got more money, more power, and now we have the Vatican
all the money.
And them covering up for molesting little boys. So yeah.
So here's the thing. All of that, obviously, again, if you are a Roman Catholic, I understand the appeal in it, and like it's cool because they have like pageantry and stuff. So I like it. I'm down. I wouldn't do it because there's too many masses for me. But the fact that it is an empire that really started Christianity as a whole and went out of its way to make sure to colonize as much of the world and take as much as they can. Obviously, it's in a very different place now. but they will forever benefit off of those plunderings and riches. Like, they are the most influential institution to this day, no matter how you look at it. I don't care if they only have 7 square miles of land at the moment. They have their hands in every piece of government across the world. So that's scary. But what I will say about the current Pope is he's a little bit of a pussy. I don't know if I could say that. TikTok, I'm looking at you. He's a little bit, because here's the thing. He has been caught on recordings having private conversations discussing hell theology. He has stated himself he does not believe in eternal conscious torment, and more so, he doesn't believe in a hell at all. He's much on my page where it's a metaphorical hell. And he thinks that the church has used it for a long time to instill fear in people. And you can look this up. He has the whole conversation about it. But because he believes that, he will never preach that. He will never say that. He won't. To make it doctrine, you would have to make a papal degree. And that was just his opinions. A papal decree has to come from God, and he has to have like a revelation where like, this is 1,000% God speaking to me. And since he doesn't do that, it won't become doctrine, and he won't even talk about his personal opinions in front of people because he's afraid that they will think of him as a heretic, and it would change the church too much. So even though he doesn't believe in hell, he gets up there and he tells everybody else hell is real and you need to be afraid. And I think that's a pussy ass move.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, when Constantine took over Rome, he confiscated land from or property from the Jews and pagan temples and gave it to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So right out of the gate, he empowered the Catholic Church, and it just kept growing and growing and growing until eventually it became state law in Rome under his son Constantinus after the Great Council of Constantinople in 381. I think it was.
Look at that, dates.
That's when it became state law. You have to be Catholic in Rome. You can't be anything else.
Word. I just figured out how to show things. We can show things. Oh, this is my first time on StreamYard, everyone. Sorry. Have you heard of theology of the body? What's that? Is that like Christ is the body of Christ? Like we're a part of the church of the Christ?
I can need you to elaborate on that one. It could mean a lot of things. There's one how can we know that the Bible is historically reliable? What was that?
I think I saw the one you're talking about. Yeah, how can we know the Bible is historically and theologically reliable? You want to take that one?
So theologically, theologically, there's no way to tell. Theology is theology. Theology, by definition, is the study of the character and nature of God. So there is no evidence of a God, so it's all just a claim. The theology in the Bible evolves, continues to evolve through the early church fathers and into the church. Historically, how we can tell is one, archaeological evidence and other extra biblical accounts of things that are talked about in the Bible, and also the Bible itself. Remember, the Bible is not one book, it's a collection of documents. So you can see one story in one book, and in another book you see the same historical account but have different details. Right? So that tells you there's maybe some truth to some of this, but probably not everything. So, for example, in Isaiah 7, 8, and 9 talks about the Syro Ephraim. What's the word?
Lisa Marie Presley just died. 54. Sorry, what? I got a notification. Lisa Marie Presley just passed away. She was on her way to the hospital earlier, and she died.
Who's that?
Sorry. Elvis
Presley's daughter?
Yes.
Oh. Well, damn. Anyway, so those chapters talk about the Syro-Ephraimite, I get the word mixed up all the time, war where Israel and Samaria wanted to rebel against Syria, but the king of Judah was tight with Assyria. So he refused to join that union. So they wanted to remove the king of Judah and instill their own king so that the three kingdoms can go and conquer Assyria. That's a historically accurate account. That's mentioned in First Kings, First Chronicles, Again, Isaiah 7, 8, and 9. But when you get to like Daniel talks about King Nebuchadnezzar, right? We don't have any historical accounts of Nebuchadnezzar. What we do, and he went mad, right? God cursed him, made him go mad, and he went out and he ate grass for like 10 years, right? You don't remember that story? We don't have any historical accounts of that. What we do have is King Nabonidus, who exiled himself for a period of, it was 7 or 10 years. He went mad, or his followers said he went mad, because he wanted to worship the moon god Sin. No correlation with the word sin. He went mad, left, and he wanted to worship this god. Well, the king not being present in his kingdom was a big problem, because he was the one who was supposed to officiate certain rituals and sacrifices that were supposed to happen, and there was nobody around to do that. So we have accounts of them saying, hey, our king's not here, he went mad and left. So the biblical story is not accurate, but there is a parallel story in history that it's probably referring to, but has like a muddied up memory about it.
Yes.
So,
and that's the thing, is it's hard when we're talking about historical references of things that were used in an allegorical sense. Like, I mean, even if you want to like look at it from a wider and strange perspective, the house of David is mentioned in the Meshach still, right? But is David a real person? Or is it possible that David was an idea, the house of David as an idea, not that he was an actual king? Like it's hard because we don't have enough to look at it historically. Even though we know it's a thing and somebody considered it a thing, it's hard to actually track. And I'm reading a history of God right now, and they're talking specifically about how the gods of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob might not have even been the same gods. Like Abraham might have been following El, while Isaac was following somebody else, and then Jacob was following Yahweh. It's like this evolution throughout time, but they all became Yahweh. So it's hard to say. Nothing's reliable. Never trust the reliability. Okay, let me bring on Courageous. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say the common theme when it comes to the Old Testament, or the historical narratives in the Old Testament, is there's usually a kernel of truth that got blown way out of proportion. It's like the Exodus, 3 million Jews. It was probably like 5 or 10, maybe escaped from Egypt. So it got then a huge story got blown up about it.
Exactly.
Same thing with we can move on. There's other examples. That's usually the thing. Like the kingdom of David, could have been a real kingdom, but it was probably very, very small. But the Bible talks about like huge. Same thing with Solomon. Solomon's temple was this massive thing with gold everywhere. We don't have that fucking temple, but there's no archaeological evidence of that temple. But there may have been a little temple somewhere
hanging out.
So that's kind of the thing. Like, it's possible there's a kernel of truth, but it was blown way out of proportion.
Well, because that's what
or it's just not
do.
true.
Like through like the telephone game, you know, like. I've seen people do that in like my family and stuff, you know, where it's like something where it's like it becomes so exaggerated where you're like, no, that's not what actually happened.
It's totally historical telephone. And like if you think about the sources,
culture is illiterate.
And then there's that
reading and writing the stuff down, they're telling stories about it. The stories get embellished more and more as time goes on, because you tell the story and it's not that impressive. We've heard this story a million times, dudes.
Like, and it's a univocality problem as well. Because I mean, if you think about like just in the Old Testament, the J source and the P source going up against each other, they have like 300 years between them, right? 800 BCE to 600 BCE to or 500s-ish, I should say.
Yeah,
and they're in a totally different like culture by now, but they're trying to write as if they're one voice, and people are taking it as if it's one voice. But it's very apparent when all the J sources say Yahweh, but all the P sources have never even heard of the Tetragrammaton because they were using El Shaddai at the time. But they're writing in the same book, like chapter back to back, as if they were there in Exodus and not separated by 300 years. So it becomes a thing. Okay, wait, let's get back to the comments.
Ocean Moon still here? Because Ocean Moon had some questions about Ephesians 5 and the whole thing about women submitting to their, like, wives submitting to their husbands. So
I didn't see that.
if they are still here, I have thoughts about that, and I would love to talk about it. The other thing I was going to mention is that when you're talking about sobriety, did you guys read about the bill that was that both the House and the Senate passed in New York to offer atheists or people who are non-religious a non-religious option, and the governor dismissed it outright?
Really?
Yeah, like was like, this is unnecessary.
happened.
People don't need this. Like both passed in both the House, overwhelming majority in both the House and the Senate, and then the governor was just like, "Fuck y'all."
One guy.
I am
One
upset
guy.
by that.
Yeah.
But I don't expect anything less at this point, to be honest. It's not surprising anymore. So I wanted to
Okay,
get back to
so
this
Ocean Moon
theology of
is
the
still-
body.
Okay.
Jeffrey's asking here. Theology of the Body is a book thing written by a pope who basically tried to explain the rights and wrongs of human morality and sexuality. All right. Is anyone familiar?
I have not.
I've heard of it. Not intimately.
So we are not qualified for that specific book. we tried. All right, where are we at? Questions?
Okay, so Ocean Moon is still here, and so I do want to talk about that because I think it's really interesting, because what I was taught is not what is taught in the vast majority of churches. So if you look at, I want to say it's Ephesians 5:21, it talks about mutual submission in all things. It talks about like how we are all supposed to love each other and submit to each other. And then it starts talking about husbands and wives and how they are supposed to love and submit to each other. Almost like love and submission are interchangeable within these passages. And in Matthew 25 through 28, Jesus talks about how the world defines leadership by who has the power, the authority, and the control. But he defines it through leadership. Leadership through service. So if you want to be a great leader in Jesus's eyes, you have to be a great servant. So in Ephesians 5, where it is talking about someone being the head of the household, so the husband, the man being the head of the household, if you look at it through that lens, it's supposed to be that the man is the greatest servant in the home. It doesn't mean that he has the final authority and power and control, and that he essentially gets to be this tyrant. Now, that doesn't mean in reverse that women get to be tyrants to their to their husbands, but the way that the modern American church has taken this verse is that men are the head of the household, women are supposed to submit to them, and so they have to do what their husband says.
Yeah.
And that is them learning authority and power instead of being a servant. I'm an atheist, so I don't think that the Bible is what we should base our marriages on. But between the two, guess which one, if you have which view, I see more people getting abused under.
I don't think we need to guess. I think it's pretty apparent.
Right?
But, and then again, I am very much of the belief that everybody should be deconstructing. But outside of that, like if you are still a practicing Christian, there's ways to engage with the text and see them for what they are without causing harm. And that's one of those things where you can see what the point was, what they meant in terms of being like a leader and having a strong family unit, and recognize that, like, yeah, having a strong family unit is a good thing, because when things get hard, you can lean on each other and get out of debt and do whatever you need to do. But it doesn't mean you need to take it so seriously as to like demean your wife because woman bad. Like there's a way to read it, understand what they're trying to say, and adapt it to a modern view where women aren't property. I did want to touch on Sunny's here. Let's see. My thought is that since humans can't perceive the totality of the divine, each culture sees a version of him, her, them. Since, can you discuss that? Yes. I love this. Because I just posted a TikTok today for like that yes sound. Like, no, it's not. Yes, it is. That sound of basically saying that religion is an amalgamation of things that came before it. Like, there's never been an original religion in my purview, in my aspect. anything, even if it's Scientology. It's based on other information that they have to work with. And it's an evolutionary phenomenon. Homo sapiens have always had religious, have always had religious leaders. Homeostasis, the homosexuals, have always been religious. So the previous humanoids, whatever they may have been, also probably had religions, and they all looked vastly different from what we had. So religion is a mimetic thing. It is a meme that transfers from one group to the next as we mingle with other different tribes. We share ideas, and it keeps on getting added to. So there's no ultimate divine of like, this is the one, because it's always just been new ideas stacked on top of it. So people aren't able to grasp the idea. They just keep building on the idea.
Well, and the way that I usually see this is when people will be talking about how like that the God or the divines, like that he is beyond our human comprehension, is whenever we try to bring up criticisms within the Bible of like, here Yahweh instructs genocide, here Yahweh instructs, and people will be like, well, but he is beyond our understanding, so you can't decide that he is bad because we're using our human brain limitations. And I'm like, okay, but if we can't decide that God is bad, you can't decide that God is good because he is beyond our understanding. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, no, because we get spiritual discernment. And I'm like, oh, so you get these magic powers that, like,
I'm just listening. I just really wanted to show off this camera. My name has sus in it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Because Jesus' name has sus in it.
Oh, this is a good one. I think Cap will get up on here. Saw a little while ago that you had said Moses may not have been an actual person. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so basically kind of what I was saying earlier. There is no evidence of an Exodus at all, like zero. And it has not been for lack of trying to find it. There have been numerous archaeological excavations made by people with bottomless pockets whose intent it was to find evidence of their religion, and they found nothing. There's no evidence of an Exodus at all. So because of that, they're like, this guy Moses was a made-up fictitious figure. And it's possible there was some guy, like I was saying earlier, possible some guy down the line did something that stood out to some people. Maybe he was somewhat of a leader in a small community that escaped Egypt. Maybe we have a couple of accounts of people escaping Egypt as slaves. It's like 2 or 3, I think. So again, maybe there's a tiny little kernel of it, but there's no evidence to say that Moses was a historical figure.
Well, and
I'm not super up to fresh on that information.
Because now that we have copyright, people own ideas. They own ideas, they own concepts, they own stories, right? Well, they didn't have copyright back then. So it was very common for people to grow up with a certain mythology and to kind of take that and make it their own, but to change things to make it fit their tribe. And it wasn't like it was this plagiarism that has the negative connotation that it has today. This is because these mythologies were passed on from generation to generation, and it was just the way that people understood their world and the people around them, even if parts of them knew that this was like, this didn't actually happen to my founding people. It became part of what them as a people have had to overcome to survive. Because like, even like with Moses, I mean, there was a myth before the Bible of someone who was put in put down the river and adopted by a princess, and like freed his people from slavery. So it's these mythologies, they came from somewhere. It's just not what is in the actual Bible is true.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about too, about how religions develop, and it's just a natural process of cultural combining, and the original gets buried because languages go extinct, cultures go extinct. So we do see that there were obviously people of Jewish descent moving into Canaan, and Canaanites have been recorded to be Egyptian slaves, but like Cap was saying, just like dozens. And so those Canaanites telling their story kind of hit home to the Hebrew people who are being exiled from Babylon. And they found like a common theme, a common, oh, wow, you're running away from Egypt and we're running away from Babylon, and let's team up and make our story one. And it just happens that way when you start marrying and having kids. But
yeah, basically, yeah. They don't have any written tradition that they're passing down and telling, reading in front of their sort of these are oral cultures. What cultural anthropologists know about oral cultures is stories change over time, and that's just the nature of it. Until it gets to somebody who can write it down, it changes.
And in the same way, the epistles that are forgeries, like when you think of forgeries now, that has like a really sinister connotation to it. But this was something that was very common for people who were either learned under someone, or that was inspired by a person's work to attribute it to that person. And for the most part, for a lot of them, I feel like they probably had good intentions. The one exception I would say is Timothy, because that one was just like, this Bible isn't misogynistic enough. We need to reinforce the patriarchy.
I don't know what Timothy was on, but it definitely was something.
It was some
bullshit.
Misogyny
for no reason at all.
I'm sorry,
and like that's the thing. I mean, you say forgery sounds bad today. Bart Ehrman argues, both in Forged and Jesus Interrupted, that it's not any more negative for forgeries today. Like it was bad then too. Like there's strict laws against
there were laws
time
against
period,
it.
And
got caught and they got in trouble for it.
They would be killing people over it. Like they really did not like it. It's just for whatever reason it worked with the church fathers' agenda and they rolled with it. They didn't have enough textual science to really question the writing style or date the time period that the papyrus came from. They just were like, oh, cool, it says by Paul. That must be real. Let's take it.
Yeah.
A lot of Gnostic texts were removed because how they elevated women. What's funny? I feel the opposite about the one I think that should have made it. So the Gospel of Thomas is considered a Gnostic text, even though it would predate the other synoptic gospels. Maybe people say maybe. I'm on the side that it does, because as a sayings gospel, we see almost every single saying repeated across the other three.
Is that the one where Jesus killed someone?
That's the infancy gospel of Thomas, which is different. But
the Gospel of Thomas, just sayings,
just Jesus's words, and I think that's way more accurate than anything before it got turned into a narrative, and it fits the timeline well for me. But they say that it can't be canon because it's too misogynistic, which is kind of the opposite of what you were saying, Sonny.
It's really misogynistic in the last verse where Jesus' disciples goes up to him and says, Mary cannot enter into heaven with us. You should make her into a man so that she can. And Jesus is like, you're right. She can't come to heaven. I will make her a man so that she can come to heaven with us. But scholars think
that's the one verse that they said is too bad.
That's the very last thing. Scholars think that was added later because you can see that in some other Gnostic texts.
I don't. I think scholars just have their heads up their ass too far to understand what's happening. I think that is Jesus mocking them.
Our contrast with the rest of the gospel, it doesn't fit at all. It makes
but I think that's why. I think it's Jesus mocking them in the most like trolley pwn way ever, being like, "Yeah, okay, let's do that. I'm gonna make her a man."
See, I would be really interested.
I don't think he was actually saying it.
If the person who wrote Timothy had access to the Gospel of Thomas, because in 2 Timothy it says that women are only redeemed through having children. Like they aren't even redeemed through Christ. They are only redeemed through having children.
Well, that's not in the Gospel of Thomas. That's a whole new thing.
It's saying that women can't go to heaven
Yeah. I mean, that was just
So-
like a normal. I think the reason why it was included in Thomas specifically is because that was a normal belief. Like, that was men should be the only ones studying and learning. And it was saying basically how women they're not people. They are property. They're not a person. Why would somebody who's not a person go to heaven? So I think Thomas was specifically to address that. Like, here, Jesus had just said that there is neither master nor slave. There is no female nor male. Like, we are all one in Christ. That comes from Thomas as well as the other gospels. And he just gets done saying that, and then the disciples come right back at him saying, hey, but Mary is a woman. She can't get into heaven. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay, we'll just turn all women into men then. After he just got done saying there's no difference. So I don't believe that it was misogynistic. I think he was pulling their leg. And scholars just don't have a wide enough view.
I think that's just how you would respond.
You what?
I don't know. That's so funny.
The patriarchy exists because men desperately want to have babies, but women are the ones who are able. So they tried stealing our power. Do men want babies that bad? I don't know. I'm a homosexual. I've never wanted a baby.
Mean, that really sounds like so if anything, that would be
I fucking love babies. I don't want to have them myself, though. I mean, like, I don't want to birth them.
Mythology, because, Zeus was so jealous that women could have children. So he got a woman pregnant, and then he ate her. And then, like, 9 months later, he had this horrible migraine. And so he had... Gosh, I think it was Hephaestus. He had him cut open his head, and a phoenix came out. And that's why she's the goddess of wisdom, is because she came out of Zeus's head. But that would kind of align with that. So, like, men are super jealous that they can't have kids.
I mean, I can see it. Like, personally, I would want to birth a child, I guess. I want to know what that's like. I want to know what it's like to carry a life inside of me. I understand that drive, but as a father, I don't have any need to be like, oh, I want babies. It has a lot to do with just like the patriarchal society as well, of, people having to pass their... What is that noise?
What is that?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Wife is open.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
We love you.
What was I saying? Oh, I mean, it's just a patriarchal idea of that you have to have a male heir to pass down your wealth and your knowledge, your business, even if it's like a welding business in 1200 AD. Without a baby, you're not going to get your lineage passed on, like whatever. I don't need my lineage going anywhere.
There's so many humans. Like, I understood back then when, people were like worried that if they didn't populate the earth that like we were gonna die out, but now I have no problem with the idea of humans dying out because we're killing our planet.
We're gonna die by 2050. It's fine.
We have successfully multiplied. We've done that. Right? We don't need to...
I get into so many fights here on YouTube. If all of you in the chat don't know, there's so many good videos where like I will just sit and fight for hours in the YouTube comments. So always check those out because they're so entertaining.
A couple of days.
But yeah, but that's what you just said reminded me of. Oh God, what did you just say? Now it's gone. I was gonna talk about this comment fight I got into. Do you remember what you said?
That I think that if humans died out, that would be a good thing because
yeah. So we, in the middle of like the abortion debate, right? There was this person who came in and was talking about how we're going extinct, how because of the declining sex and declining birth rates that we're going to go extinct as a species. And I find that such a ludicrous argument in support of why abortion should be banned, because we are at 8 billion people on this planet. And if you look at 100 years ago, in 1923, we were at 2 billion. So it's gone from 2 billion to 8 billion in 100 years. Not
The
even
whole
doubled.
thing.
That is 300%.
That's not okay. So I would put down money. I would bet money what race that person was,
White,
that they
sure.
were a white person.
Yep.
Because what Amy Coney Barrett put in her opinion about Roe v. Wade being overturned was that there is a domestic shortage of infants.
Yeah.
So what they are worried about
Yeah.
is the fact that white people aren't having as much kids as they
Ding, 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 ding.
do. That is the reason that
Yep.
homosexuality and trans is such a threat to them, is because gay people, I mean, by natural, if can't have kids. And so they need white people to be having as many babies as possible so that they don't get outnumbered and become the minority, which is going to happen. We already know that that is what is going to happen. And
Yeah.
they see that and they're terrified because they know how they have treated minorities. And so they don't want to be the minority.
It's about also capitalism. They're worried about declining worker numbers. It's about just not having a ruling class that they can force people to do for minimum, if not under minimum wage. So they're afraid of losing that kind of spirit. And that's natural when it's capitalism, because capitalism is just grow, expand. If we're not making more numbers every single turn, then we're failing. And they treat the population like it's capitalism. It's okay if we drop in 2 billion people. Like, it will be fine. If anything, it's going to be good for the environment. So if 100 years we go from 8 billion to 6 billion, it'll be okay. We do not have to constantly be expanding. We don't have anywhere to expand to. And unless they fix things like people going hungry and not having healthcare, it's a moot point because we are already taxed as a system.
That's what, so especially
Thanos,
because
right.
conservatives love capitalism. Capitalism depends on cheap labor to exploit, and it's easier to force people to make babies against their will than to make robots.
Yep. Ding, ding, ding.
So that instead of actually doing things that are proven to lower abortions, like fixing the housing crisis,
they're also not smart enough to make robots.
Healthcare, and
they don't like going to college and learning how to read, things like that.
That's awful. 10 billion in 2080, says Bible Unboxed. Scary. And like, here's the thing. I don't understand. People will make the political science arguments about abortion and try to use this as like, it's not about religion. It's not about religion. It's because of this, that, and this. And I get confused when people make these arguments because they're very pro-life, because the dwindling population numbers, and I'm not even a Christian. I'm just pro-life because of that. But they don't realize on the flip side of that, that's why religions are doing it as well. Christians also aren't doing it because it's a God thing. They're doing it because it's a capitalist thing and they go where the power is. Christianity in America acts as an empire. And for that to go on successfully, they need to be in politics with the big money. They need to be in politics with the people who are the big power. And if those politicians are saying, oh my God, our birth rate's declining, what can you do? The religious leaders come and say, well, we can make this about a God thing. And so for someone to argue that and still not see how it's being played on both sides is sad to me. People don't connect the dots.
Oh, it's very sad. It's very sad. And it's very, because, the thing is that those people that are making those arguments, even if they aren't religious, the people who are conservative, they are concerned with protecting their financial assets and they depend on capitalism. So it comes back to they need more cheap labor to exploit for them to be able to have their vacation home and their boat, and to be able to fly their MAGA flag until it's in the middle of a lake.
I don't know. Hi, Arch. Everybody, welcome, Arch.
There were 3 brilliant scholarly people in this live, and I thought someone had to tip the scales in the other direction. So I wanted to say hi real quick.
I am not scholarly, my dear, but you're definitely the comedian. So thank you for comedy hour.
What we need is Jimmy to join and start doing Ben Shapiro. Where
Ben
is
Shapiro,
Jimmy?
Well, I can
where
try
are
to do
you?
it, but Jimmy kind of has a patent on that.
I know my title's backwards,
Great.
but not on my side. So I don't know what that's about. Sorry, y'all. Anyway, if you can read backwards, it says go to YouTube.
By the way, what I will say too on the whole population thing, as someone who has driven in both Birmingham and Atlanta like very frequently during rush hour, I can think of very few problems in the world that can be solved by throwing more humans at it. So yeah, especially that.
I mean, like, I can see if we were going to be expanding sometime to like Mars, like, yeah, we need some more people to put on Mars. We don't need more people anywhere on this Earth right now. There's nowhere that you could put more people and be like, that fixed it.
I can think of some people I'd like to put on Mars right this minute. Not really with a plan or a
like
colony,
Elon
just
Musk is like, I want to go to Mars. I'm like, go to
Or
Mars.
even a source
dude.
of oxygen.
Yeah, bye.
They're bringing their own hot air.
What's our next
Entire
topic?
Trump family to Mars, please.
Oh God.
Jared Leto.
Oh wow. But then you
30
know what would
seconds.
happen if you
J.K.
put the
Rowling-
entire Trump family
J.K.
on
Rowling can
Mars?
go to Mars.
They would definitely repopulate with each other. And I don't know if the world or even Mars could handle that. Trump would be all up in Ivanka being like, there's no rules on Mars. And he would pull a
I was the
Noah and
best
sleep with his
Martian.
daughter.
Everybody looked at me and said, he is the best Martian ever. I got along with all the other Martians, but they all agreed I was the best.
And I love a marsh.
Nobody was
marsh- I
exiled
don't
from
even-
a planet.
Goodbye,
like I
Sonny.
was.
Thank
That's
you for
what-
hanging out. I just want to say that before you just jump out.
Hi, Sunny.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. So get questions queued up or y'all just talk. I need to go refill my tea. It's not even the good kind, but I'll be back for my 5 viewers on
By the good
TikTok.
kind, you mean peyote?
I wish. I don't. Can you drink peyote? I thought you smoke it.
Yeah.
You're gonna get my lives banned just by talking about substances. Like here we are, finally passing 10,000 subscribers, celebrating, and then they're like, "Oh,
It
your
was a
account's
good
cut.
run.
Bye."
Run.
Okay, I'll be right
We
back.
made it.
Crashed it.
Don't judge my bed. I haven't really made it.
Oh my gosh, look at that bed. Look at
Are
my
you
bed, though. I don't even have the sheet all the way on.
same? Are you really an atheist
A lot
content
of-
creator if you haven't been kicked off of more than one platform though? Like seriously.
Yeah, right?
I haven't been kicked off a
It's a lot of
platform yet.
throw pillows. Was this somebody throw pillows?
I've had my stuff hidden on Facebook because I shared a meme that people like reported as misinformation, and I'm like, it's a meme. Like, what? Oh, that was.
Deadpool brings up a really good question. That is an aggressive amount of throw pillows, and I'm frankly jealous because that looks comfy as fuck.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Like,
yeah.
he was like, "Don't judge my bed." I'm like, I'm.
What's the
not
thing in the
judging it,
back
I'm
against the wall? That looks like a unicorn. You'll see what I'm looking at. That last pillow.
That is a unicorn. That is 100% a unicorn. That's gotta be.
That's got to be a unicorn. It's got a rainbow horn on it. It looks like.
Why am I not seeing?
What do y'all think in the chat?
So
Against the wall, the white thing with the
Oh,
rainbow
yeah.
boner sticking out.
Yes. Oh God,
Rainbow
yes.
boner.
Like it's a.
It's a horny. Okay. We're getting kicked off, aren't we?
We're about to find out. Place your bets. Well, you all in the chat.
Okay, what did
place
I
your
miss?
bets.
I came back and there was not a new question in chat. How dare
What is
y'all?
that behind you? Is that a unicorn?
We need to know if there's a
Yeah.
unicorn behind you.
Do you have a unicorn on your bet? You do. Yes, I was right.
Yes. Oh, it's a unicorn stole. It is a unicorn stole.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yes, it's a unicorn neck thing, and then it vibrates.
oh,
Oh,
Okay.
so that's
it's one
like
of those.
It's one of those.
You put a quarter in it, and yeah.
If only the horn was a little harder, we might be onto something. But it's a little flimsy.
Bad Dragon, are you listening?
we have not been judging your bed. We have been
Pulling out
jealous
my
of your
wires.
bed. It looks super creepy. No, you were like, don't judge my bed. Do you see like my sheet isn't even fully?
We've been judging your bed. Oh, I accept. It's okay.
This is my bed.
All right, so let's think of a fun question that we can talk about.
I'm gonna get going, guys. I'm fading.
Okay.
Good to see you,
Okay,
Devlin.
good
fun. Glad
night.
I
Thank
could-
you for joining.
All right, good. Definitely. Thanks.
I was just gonna say, I don't know what
Catch
the
y'all
next
later.
topic's gonna be, but we'll make sure that it's not something that we need your expertise for.
Holy
I
Roman
did like
Catholic
want to talk
and
about.
either Holy nor Roman or Catholic Empire. Discuss.
But
I have been to Aachen before, which was like the seat of the Holy Roman Empire for a while. That's literally all I know about it.
Okay, I didn't even know that. That's new. I mean, there's been a lot of talk on Roman Catholicism tonight, and I don't know a lot about it, so I probably should stay away from that topic. Kind of like when
No, but someone
people.
did want to. I don't know if the person was here that was asking about Romans, that verse that.
Oh yeah, they were wanting me to go over Romans. I don't think I saved it. Dang.
Romans.
Covered that.
Not my hairy armpits. That sounds awful.
Well, we could talk about that. That's a real topic right there. I've been impossibly frustrated with attempts to rationalize traditional Christian narrow ideas of sexuality and relationships based on nature. It's so dumb, and the fallacy of basing anything on nature is absurd because we're humans. We are alive. We are animals. Inherently, anything that humans do is something that exists in nature. So for somebody to be like,
But they don't
that's
see
not how it
themselves
is
as
in
animals.
nature.
Like, this is something, because I was talking with one of my mom's friends when I was talking about how when the Bible is written, they didn't know that thousands of animals show same-sex behavior or say, and I was like, so they didn't have that knowledge. So when they saw two men together, they thought that was unnatural because they didn't think that was in nature.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, but we aren't animals. And I was like, yes, we are. They think that man was created differently and therefore is set apart and is special. And so we have to, as humans, have to live by stricter rules. And then some of them would say the only reason that animals do that is because of sin, that sin has corrupted them.
No, I've never heard that. Oh God. Throw them off a roof. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely. If I had known, because that is the whole reason that they believe that so many illnesses, they believe that that's why 5-year-olds die of cancer, is because sin entered the world and therefore sometimes bad things happen, and that's why, or like that's why hurricanes happen, is because when sin entered the world, God cursed the earth.
Okay. Well, so here's the thing. I got into a fight with somebody again on the abortion video that blew up. I should have done like a newbie head count at the start of this, like just to see who's new to my channel. I'm excited because like there's at least 2,000 people out there I don't know. But in my abortion talk, somebody was trying to use sex being pleasurable as a reason why abortion should be outlawed. I don't understand where he was coming from, but he got into the whole subject of animals don't enjoy sex. Animals don't have sex for pleasure.
Dolphins.
The only creatures apparently that do are humans and dolphins. And I was like, that is wrong, like on so many levels. I don't know if you've ever gotten to the Animal Channel, but there's a lot of sexy, freaky, deaky species out there. And humans and dolphins aren't it.
Yeah, they read that in a Christian theology book.
Yeah.
Because
and he actually brought up the point that he's like dogs, for example. I didn't even know this until after I responded, but in his first comment, he said dogs, for example, don't have sex for pleasure. And in my comment, that was my actual go-to example. I was like, have you ever owned a dog? They hump everything.
They literally have a style named after them.
So yeah, it's a bad argument, actually. These people break my brain, and I don't understand why. Just because, and then they're the same people to say, well, just because animals do it, should we? When you do something like, oh, well, there's a lot of species that do practice homosexuality, and they're like, but we're not animals. And then they'll also turn around and say, oh, we shouldn't be having sex because no other animals have pleasurable sex. You can't have it both ways.
You're looking for consistency from, essentially from people who get their theology from a book that constantly contradicts itself. I mean, it's whatever argument makes sense at the time, honestly.
That's part of the problem.
I remember reading a book that was called Crazy Good Sex, and it was about like myths that Christians have about sex. It was actually like a pretty decent book, but one part that I thought was super funny was it said that humans were the only creatures that have sex looking at each other. And I was like,
No, not even that.
like, there's so
Have
much
you
going
seen a
on.
bonobo? Bonobos are bi and crazy. They do not stop touching themselves unless they have somebody else to touch, and then they'll cool down for like a minute.
I know. I'm only like 22 years old and I've never had sex before, and I know this is super wrong. Like,
Okay, so I have two little things I want to talk. Hi, Susan. First, thank you for being here. You follow my TikTok, but you're new to my YouTube. What up? I was meaning more like the 2,000 people who found me in the past 24 hours. I want to know who these people are. I want to know their life. But I accept you being new to the YouTube as well. So we want to talk about Alan's question. Did you hear about the mistranslation saying boy and man and not two men? So this is going to be something we can talk about in layman's terms because it's so complicated that I don't have enough notes on the Hebrew sitting right here. So there's a couple different ways that we could approach this. So in the Levitical 18:22 verse, which is what I'm assuming you're referring to, it says that man shall not lie with man as he should with women. When you go back to the Hebrew, it says that a man, Zakar, should not lie with, or is Zakar the younger one? There's two different words being used for men, and this is where the argument comes from. So there's Zakar and the other one that's blinking. One means boy, one means man, specifically a man. One means male, just male. So it doesn't necessarily have an age at all. So does it mean a boy and a man? Not necessarily. Could it? Kinda. That's where that argument comes from. So it's a little hard to say that like scholarly, here is a definitive, this is saying boy, because it's not. It's just saying all males. So I wouldn't use that as an argument, but it does get you to ask, and you have to ask yourself the question, why did they not just say man and man? Why did they say man and male? Because they are trying to make a point, but what is the point they're trying to make? And overall, it's a Levitical verse, so it doesn't apply to anybody anyway. I wouldn't be that worried about it. And then when you look at the word of like to lie with or as with a woman, it parallels another law in Deuteronomy that's specifically talking about not having an affair in your wife's bed. And that is specifically talking about a straight affair in your wife's bed. And I think that's what's going on here. I think just like you're condemned to have a straight affair in your wife's bed, it's condemning using your marital bed to have an affair with a man.
I mean, but it's also, you know, because like you go through, like, as you're deconstructing Christianity, you go through like different phases where like at first it was like homosexuality is a sin, and then you're like, oh, but everybody has sin. But then it's like, well, it's actually only a sin for clergy, and that was one of the like that, and then now I'm like, F the Bible, but but you know, but that was one of the reasons, is that Leviticus is setting very specific laws for their priests, their rabbis that were like the highest, like that were trying to enter the inner circle, and there's like a list of different things that they had to do to purify themselves, and it was just for that purification of that like that if they believed that if you stepped into that inner circle and you had any sin that you had not purified yourself of, that God would strike you down dead immediately. They would literally tie a string around their foot before they stepped in, so that if God struck them down dead, that they could pull the person out.
Here's the thing. I want to talk about this because this is where we get into the realm of temple prostitution. Okay, so there's a good chunk, right, in 18 talking about temple prostitution, right, in ways that you should not engage in the temple prostitution, because you would have to then be clean before you can enter the temple, right? But you can't be clean while you're in the temple having the sex. So they're trying to get temple prostitution out. But also, at the time, in Second Temple Judaism, only men were allowed in synagogue. So that includes the prostitutes. The church-sanctioned temple prostitution that was happening would have been men sleeping with men.
Okay, so then I have a question, because I want to say it's like Judah and Tamar, that like where she disguises herself as a temple prostitute and sleeps with him and becomes pregnant and pregnant with his twins. And and the form of payment that he gives her is like what she gives him to prove that he had slept with her and she didn't sleep with anyone else. And so how would that be possible if
she disguised herself as a prostitute? She couldn't just walk in there as a woman.
Point of order, I think that was before the temple as well.
Oh, okay. That's an important
way
distinction.
before that. Yeah.
I think that's actually, isn't that why like Jacob is such a big deal, is because he like kind of created that before he died or something? I don't know.
Maybe Jacob creating the second temple?
I don't know.
No, the temple was after the tabernacle, which was founded under Moses, correct?
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah.
I had one I wanted to touch on, but yeah, so it's just an interesting thing. People skip right over that because they're like, yeah, it's just about prostitution, and then they don't think about the ramifications of what that means. And I think that's very interesting because they're very obviously sanctioning gay sex in some form, and they were okay with it. They just were saying it's unclean, and you have to clean yourself before you come into here. Just like if you ate shellfish, you're gonna have to go take a bath, take a mitzvah. Yeah, and then get clean before you can come back in. So they're not saying that it's terrible. It's just like wash your shit after you're done having sex.
Well, and then like, because there was like a whole thing, because also like women, like if you had been even around your wife while she had her period, then you had to like have a 2-week cleansing process. Like it was a whole thing.
It takes 2 weeks to clean just from having your menstruation cycle. Exactly.
Yeah, and like people, and so but the thing is that in both verses that are in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, what Dan McKellen has talked about, if you guys aren't familiar with Dr. Dan McKellen, I'm a big fan.
He's our everything.
But he, he'll talk about that, like the actual, like within like the historical context, that when it says that a man shall not bed with a male, it's an active act. So it's back then, whether we're talking about the Old Testament or the New Testament, they didn't have a sense of sexuality. So what they cared about was whether you were the penetrator or the person being penetrated. And so the person that is specifically being condemned is the penetrator, because they are the one that is spoiling or wasting their seed. And that's because everything was about procreation. That's what the sin was.
And where I understand that argument, I don't like getting too deep into it, because then it's so easy to open that window for evangelicals to then start condemning sex acts, where sex acts should not be the focus or the conversation. And then you hear people walking around church being like, it's okay if you're gay, just be celibate, because it's the act of having sex that God hates. And that opens the door to give them validation. So I like to steer away from that argument as much as I can.
I mean, I don't.
And YouTube doesn't like it when you get too deep into penetration, man.
I bet. But because it has a valid place, but the way that they twist it is not valid. Whereas what we're talking about is not only just the wasting of seed, but it's also, more importantly, easy to be violent, because there was a lot of men who would use their dominance to overtake another man, and that is what we call grapes. So it's frowned upon in that way. It was used to demasculinize people. It was used to punish people. If you think of Sodom and Gomorrah, the 100 men who show up banging at the stranger's house, do you think it's because they're sexually attracted to these strangers who just walked in? No, it's because they want to humiliate them. And the way that they could humiliate them is by bending them over and making them...
Welcome, Melissa.
Hi.
Talking about how you wanted to meet someone who started following him recently.
Yeah, so I think while we're talking about that, we talk about violence, and then evangelicals hear it and they go, "Oh, sex is bad." They can't separate the two. And that's where I think it's dangerous. Yes, Leviticus 18:22, that's what we're just talking about. My duck my duck guy over here. The fuck is this conversation? So it seems like the trolls have finally found me from TikTok and they're rolling in. Welcome. Ask your questions. Instead of saying what is the
Respectfully.
conversation, say
If as long as you're
what do you think
respectful,
about
if you're a bully or a bigot, I'm going to block you. It's gonna happen. So
word. Okay, wait. So I did have something I wanted to talk about here. Bible Unboxed. Here's a philosophical question for you. Do you think there's even such a thing as natural? If something is physically possible, doesn't that make it part of nature? Yeah. If it's something that's observable in the physical known world, it's natural. And then anything that's not something that we can observe or test becomes supernatural. So like if would I say it's socially beneficial for somebody to be a serial killer or a psychopath? Probably not, but it's natural. It's just something that happens. People become psychopaths in their brains. Like it's totally natural thing to do. But that's the difference, I think, is a lot of people try to use nature and equate it to morality, and that's not the argument. Like there's a difference between what's good for humankind and society, and then there's the argument of does it happen in nature? And so it's a bad argument to use for pretty much anything when we're talking religion or ethics.
Man, a lot of people use natural when they mean normal, and normalizing their particular sexuality or their particular, view of things and all that, is used to oppress others. So
Yeah.
Well, I was talking about this in the chat earlier, that if you look up the arguments that conservative Christians had about interracial marriage, they use the exact same arguments that they do for gay marriage now. They say it was unnatural, not traditional, and against God's design. And you can see that they said that to argue for slavery. They said that to uphold segregation. They said that about interracial marriage. They said it about gay marriage. They say it about trans. Like it's their same script. They just change what they're talking about.
In a way, it's an appeal to authority, but instead of trying to appeal to a person or an argument, they're appealing to just like, look, I can point to XX and XY chromosomes existing. Therefore, you're wrong. They're appealing to some kind of like unbreakable truth when that's not the reality, because normalcy is just an average. There's always outliers. There's always extremes. And there's things that you can account for. You can't point to anything they point to as solid evidence.
That like sex is binary. There's just XX and there's just XY, and it's like there's 6 sex variations.
More than that. More. There's 24. No, wait. 23? It's somewhere up there. It's almost the same amount of numbers as chromosomes that you can have combinations of.
Well, okay, so what I was studying is that 2% of all humans are intersex.
Yep.
2% of all humans have red hair. 2% of all humans have green eyes. 2% of humans in the world are Russian, and yet no one argues that Russians, people with green hair or green eyes, don't exist.
I would argue that. I don't know if Russians are really here. They're allowed, but I don't know if they're really truly existing.
I think it's a communist conspiracy.
That's what I'm saying. This is definitely Mao Part 2, and I think this is a Chinese communist exploit.
I think it's a Soviet conspiracy to believe that Russians exist. Wait, what did I just do there?
Okay, wait. So I wanted to bring up a couple of things here.
I love this question.
Did you know that some Greek people still follow the Greek gods? Yes, they did. I didn't know that. I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's always nice to like bring up the information people that there's more religions than just Christianity and Abrahamic faith and Judaism, Islam. There are still people worshiping the Greek gods actively. I like to see that. Keep that energy. Next question. Speaking of gay, has the Bible ever talked about lesbians?
I mean, do Ruth and Naomi count?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, are you talking about, does the Bible condemn lesbians? There's one verse from Paul, of course, right? Romans,
Who's an
right?
incel?
Isn't this Romans that they want me to keep on doing? What was it? Romans 1:25? Yeah, Paul was an incel. And that's just the end of the story. Yes, it is. Okay. So 125 to what? 27? So this is the only mention of like lesbianism or something that could be used against lesbianism. So the verse is 126, and it says, because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received for themselves the penalties of their due error. So that's the one time you're going to see women be brought up. It never has like an actual Jewish law associated with it. And it's kind of open for interpretation. The Greek words I don't have in front of me, but the Greek words used, that's natural versus unnatural, have a lot to be desired. But what does that mean? Because the Bible also talks about women who fashioned sex toys out of the gold and silver that God gave them and used them in an unnatural way to pleasure themselves and committed fornication. So it's, who said it's about lesbianism? It might be that they're using sex toys in this scene as well. It might be that they are, God forbid, doing something bestiality wise. And again, you have to remember, people are writing about other cultures. These are people writing about the Romans, the pagans. And Paul is saying like, ew, pagan worship is so gross and sexually liberated. That's awful because I'm a celibate incel. And so he's judging them for having sex in a way that he does not think is natural. So that could be toys, it could be bestiality, it could be just a woman being on top and not missionary position.
And also, I think a lot of people overlook that he follows that up in Romans chapter 2 by trying to sell us NFTs, trying to sell us deer horn extract, and telling us to smash that like button and stick it to the libs.
Hey, it's Paul here. You're going to want to bring out my new muscle relaxer drink that also grows your muscles 10 times too big. Thanks, Paul. Okay, next. I personally don't think Paul is talking about lesbians in Romans 1. I think he's talking about non-procreative sex, i.e. oral. Oh, I didn't even think about that. I went straight to bestiality. Oh, Jesus Christ, save me.
Paul and DJ Khaled, like, theologically together. You heard it here first, folks.
No, but that makes sense. Like, yeah, Paul would have been so disturbed by oral. Are you kidding? I imagine his face finding out about what blowjobs are for the first time and him be like, and then someone going, Paul, close your mouth. That's kind of the...
Or, yeah, the first time someone explains what a... Paul didn't know what a clitoris was, so, it would have been like, what do you mean? Why are you down there?
Cat.
Yes.
Oh, no. Wait, Paul motivational YouTube clips? I mean... I have my Paul wig. I haven't started writing for him yet, but I want to do
here
a
in my
Paul
dungeon
character.
garage. Here are all my cars that I got, like all my chariots here in Rome.
Oh, this is a good question. Does the Bible ever talk about disability?
Yes, they can't go in the temple.
Yes, but not in a good context.
So here's the thing. Yeah, no, so in the early first centuries, they were not allowed in the temple because they're seen as permanently unclean. But Jesus does allow that to happen, but he pushes back on it some too in the verses about eunuchs, saying that eunuchs are welcome into the kingdom and welcome into the temple because they are not a problem. Which eunuchs then would have been a queer-coded thing. It was not just people who were physically missing their privates, but also people who chose not to get married and act in a heteronormative way. So those people who are born eunuchs were accepted, but certain disabilities, they definitely count out.
So the thing about it as well, and this is the part that's like super sinister, is that they believed that disabilities, any kind of bodily disfigurement or impairment, was a generational curse. So if
Yep.
you had not done wrong, then it meant your father or your grandfather or someone in your family had done wrong, and your disability, your disfigurement was evidence of that. And that is why disabled people were essentially pariahs in society. And that is why when Jesus is healing blind men and healing people, it's such a big deal, because nobody talked to these people, nobody helped these people. These were like they were essentially destitute and dependent on people's charity, but nobody wanted to help them. And so like that was the
As Jay said here too, often as a disabled person, I get the narrative of healing without consideration that perhaps I don't want healing. And that's the thing. Like I can imagine anybody walking into an evangelical church and being like, oh, bless you, we're going to pray that your leg starts working and it's no longer, maybe you have one leg, maybe you have two legs that are paralyzed. We're going to pray to make sure it's like, that's, especially for somebody who is born with a disability, that is so atrocious, because like they're trying to say something's wrong with you and you're not as good of a person as you could be if you were normally abled. And therefore they want you, like they feel bad for you not being normally abled and want to give you that hope, when in reality, half of your personality, like who you're raised as, comes with what you've been given in life, what you have to work with, what traumas you have to overcome. Like you as a person is also all the baggage, good and bad, however you want to do it. But it's just, I think that's rude. That's all.
Sorry, no. So my mom for over 40 years has been, she's fluent in sign language and has been signing, and she was in a deaf and hearing ministry. And so then like she was an interpreter for over 35 years. And she used to have to give seminars and speeches at churches explaining why it is so horribly offensive to pray for a deaf person to be healed. Because for them, they have their own language, they have their own culture. Like that would be like praying for someone to stop being Asian. Do you know, like that's how offensive it is.
I was gonna say it's like praying for somebody to stop speaking Spanish, but yeah, you went there. That works too.
No, but like I mean that's like when you tell a deaf person, and like I know I follow a deaf person on TikTok who like has gotten so much pushback from Christians when they try to like pray, and she's like, do not pray for me for that. I don't need it. I don't want it. I'm proud to be deaf. Like
it's the same way. I don't know how many times a day I get I'm praying for you just because they see a gay man. It's an instant I'm praying for you. No, I'm okay. Like your prayers are not going to turn me straight, and God forbid if it did, I would be boring. I would have no more culture. My emotional intelligence would fly out the window. Being straight's the worst thing you can wish on somebody.
By the way, speaking of disabled people, y'all remember the story of Mephibosheth?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, so King Saul apparently had like one kid who was lame in both legs.
I do remember.
And you remember, like, the Bible, and I heard it preached from the pulpits. They made such a huge deal that King David showed kindness to Mephibosheth and like brought him in and actually treated him like a goddamn human being, right? The problem is, like, everyone doesn't mention what happened later when David goes off, like he's running from Absalom or whatever, and then after all that gets sorted out, he comes back and he sees Mephibosheth like struggling to like catch up with him, and he's like, "Hey, where were you when I was running off? I could have used your company." Like berating this poor dude who has mobility issues for not following him all over the goddamn country, and he was just like, "Hey, I couldn't get there. I can't really get around that well." And some other person said, "Oh, he was, plotting against you this whole time." And David was just like, "Fuck it, I'm taking half your shit and giving it to the guy who accused you of stuff." The whole point of this story is that David was a dick.
Well, yeah.
We knew that.
Yeah.
Wait, wasn't it? It's not that it was Saul's son; it was Jonathan's son.
Oh, Jonathan's son. Yeah, I'm sorry, Saul's grandson.
Jonathan was like the love of his life.
Jonathan. Love of my life, my name's David. Okay. I want to talk about this one. So Mira said, sorry, I'm bad at English, but also for me, I probably go to hell for many. I believe that all gods exist by being one or multiple, or almost all. For you, Tree, if you want to respond, of course, is everyone go to their chosen god? Okay, interesting question. So what I'm getting from this is that you think you're going to get sent to hell because you believe in the universal theory in
Not, I mean,
unity.
that's not how I take it. Is that like to other people that she
Yeah,
probably
to other
according
people, they
their
think-
religion would be
Right.
going to hell, but she
Right.
believes in that all the gods exist and none of the gods exist. That like God is in
Yes.
everything and that we are all
Yes.
God. You like, am I?
Yeah.
Marvel Cinematic Universe rules. Yes.
No, I was going to say, like,
Mira,
ignore them that
reading
if
that
those many
right,
people
or-
think that you're going to hell. But, like, yeah, I think it's a total valid way to look at things and believe that all gods exist because, you know, it's the whole there's truth in everything and every myth has to start somewhere. And the universal beliefs, there's a word for it. I can't remember what it is. It's like starts with the P-thology instead of like monotheism. It's like polytheism, but not polytheism. Pantheism. That's what it is. Pantheism is the belief that all things are true in terms of God and divine and spirits and souls. So pantheism is what you're describing. And when it gets into people go to their own afterlife, I think that's always been a very interesting conversation. There's no real way for me to answer it. But like, imagine if you were Hindu and Hindi, and you die and you believe in reincarnation, they instantly get reincarnated. And then imagine that you're a Christian and you have a view of heaven with the golden gates and all the book of life and stuff. And when you die, you go there. Or if you go to Valhalla, or like, I think it's an interesting idea that you would be redirected to whatever it looks like for you. And then if you wanted to throw that back into science, it sounds like if that does happen, then it comes down to the chemicals in your brain creating the most massive hallucination when you're dying, and your expectations of going to that heaven have already been set up. And so when the hallucination begins, you are placed where you know. But like, there's no way to answer that, obviously. But yeah, is it a possibility? Sure. Yes. Anyway. And then I have another one, where the heaven is within thing went awry. Are you talking about like the kingdom of God is within you? I feel like this could be a song, like an Ariana Grande song. I wake up, you're inside me. I feel your kingdom strong.
Because God is a woman.
Yeah, it went awry somewhere down the line. I don't know. Jesus was here preaching like, hey, everyone, heaven is
disagree,
inside
Ariana.
you.
Sorry, with all the misogyny bullshit in this world, if a God exists, it is male.
Yeah, probably.
Here's my thing. I've asked whatever God is out there and everything to come talk to me personally because I'm a Karen. I demand to see the manager, and if that happens, I'll let y'all know.
Keep us. Don't call the news. Just jump on another live and let us know if God shows up for you.
I will get on YouTube and tell everyone I've seen God because that's effective. That's how it works.
Okay.
You can believe anyone on YouTube who says that.
Okay. I've been recommended many YouTube videos and they're like, look at this. And then I Googled who the pastor is before I even watched the video. And I was like, he's a pastor that is currently saying that Black people shouldn't be allowed in Christian churches anymore. I'm like, why would you ever use this as a source? And he's like, yeah, but like listen to his sermon teaching about hell, because that's what you really need to look at for your sources. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. Don't listen
I
to
had
people
someone
just 'cause they're on
recommend me
YouTube.
watch Ravi Zacharias the other day. I was like, even Ravi Zacharias' followers don't like him anymore, right?
I don't know who that is.
Isn't he he's got all those allegations about him with women? Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yet another one. But you have to kind of narrow it down from there. But yes.
Wait, who is the person that doesn't think Black people should be in churches?
What? What?
You were just talking about someone who's saying that Black people shouldn't be in churches.
Yeah. It was Pastor Mike Winger. who was talking
Oh.
about how segregation would be well for the Christian religion. He also has in the past called for like corporal punishment for gay people, and thinks he's one of those who thinks the government needs to make it illegal and the government needs to execute these plans. But
He's also probably pro limited government, ironically.
he just is someone that like I don't care what he said. He's like, no, but he brings up sources and he brings up a lot of good points that you can track. That's actually, I'm like, I don't care. I'm not watching it. Like, I gave 3 research papers in that comment thread where I linked to like actual studies. I don't need to watch a YouTube pastor read about other studies. Like, here's studies. Go read the studies. I don't need his twisted ass view.
But have you read Lee Strobel's Case for Christ? Okay.
That's funny because I just threw it out the other day as proof. So in a case for Christ,
I'm so
in a case for Christ, he quotes another theologian, and that theologian was specifically talking about, what was the subject on?
welcome, Mother Victory.
Oh, you're back. You should jump in. I don't remember what we were talking about, but there was like a direct like good quote from somebody else that is like about hell not being real, or is about whatever one of the topics I am that I speak about all the time. And I was like, case for Christ proves it. That means that's legit. That's the evangelical side, right? That means your guy believes what I believe, so you have to accept me now. And yes, divinity does not have to be a conscious person. It could be snakes. You mentioned how you're Sri Lankan and it's the water, it's the snakes, it's just life, it's plants. I think there's so many more ways to like interact with what we think of divine, and the Judeo-Christian religions, the Abrahamic religions, destroyed it. If paganism, where everything was worshiping nature, was the prominent religion, we would have a much different world.
By the way, Sri Lanka rocks. I love it.
You've
This
been?
place. Yep. I have.
What? I want to go to Sri Lanka.
It's nice. Takes you a while to get there, but it's good.
Chad, I feel like you are this iceberg of stories that like there's so much that every time I'm like
Every time. It's like, oh, that one time I was dining with the Queen. We just left Belgium and I ran into her in a trolley cart. Like, what? What are you talking about?
I actually do have a bad story about Belgian politics, but I'll tell you later.
Woo! So Sam I Am was told that if you are gay, you can't love Jesus. That's bullshit. That's all I can say about that. That's bullshit. Because like that's not how love works. Even it's like saying, hey, if you're gay, you can't love Powerpuff Girls. Like what? No, if you're in love with something, you're in love with something. So you can love on Jesus all you want. You being gay does not stop that.
So here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing. It's a big misconception that people who are homophobic or transphobic have. Is they believe that it is behavior. That being gay, being bisexual, being a lesbian, being trans is behavior, and it's an identity.
Yeah.
So it's not so for them when they say if you are gay, you can't love Jesus, they're meaning if you act on behavior that you are not being you're not following the Bible's commands. But that is not the case. The case is that whether we act on it or not, we are who we are. And there's nothing wrong with being who you are and acting on that in an authentic way, as long as everyone's consenting adults, or and that like it, you are who you love is a big part of yourself and your identity. So when people try to say, well, you can't be gay and love Jesus, what they're saying is that you have to fundamentally change your identity as a person. And they believe that Jesus can give that radical change, but they don't actually believe it. They just want to shame you for being who you are.
Yep. And like this is always something that is a repeating theme, especially on my TikTok channel. Nobody owns God. your Jesus and how you interact with Jesus can look like whatever you want it to. It needs to be something that makes you feel safe and makes you feel inspired to be a better person. But nobody can tell you what that is. It's a man who lived 2,000 years ago, and anybody who says that they know what Jesus would or wouldn't do is lying, including you. You would not know what Jesus is and isn't doing. So go ahead and make him the most beneficial to your life as you can, and don't listen to what other people tell you to believe.
Yeah, 'cause, like, there's every culture has their Jesus. Every you know, like if you look at, because missionaries, because of the Great Commission, because missionaries have gone far and wide, you know, so there's, you know, like you can find a Latina Jesus and an Asian Jesus and a Black Jesus and a white Jesus, and you know, like, but Jesus was a Middle Eastern Jew.
And a Black, Jewish, non-binary, gay Jesus. They exist.
Right. Well, and that's why I'm like, you know, if all of these cultures have a Jesus, then the queer community should have a Jesus too. And
there's Twitch Jesus because of Scotty. So
right.
There's cultural representation for Jesuses out there.
Right. Because
you already got this, Eli. All right.
Straight white men need more representation.
Straight white men have been too long have they put on the back burner. They need to come out and loudly say they're here.
People have had different theories about
we have one.
You know, throughout time, like some people believed he was trans, some people believe he was straight, some people believed he was gay. King James believed that Jesus was gay, and he used it to defend his own relationship. Like King James of the King James Bible wrote letters to the church saying, Christ had John and I have George. You know, so like you don't have to agree with that assessment that Jesus was gay, but it's a historical fact that King James believed it. And that's history. Like you can't change history as much as conservative Christians try to.
One of my favorite beers is called Even More Jesus, and honestly, I feel like we could use even more Jesus. We need a League of Super Jesus.
I think we're Jesus out, and now that they have the Passion 2 coming out, I think there's going to be a lot of Jesus everywhere, and I can't.
That's just the same old Jesus, though. Like the 20 years ago Jesus are just bringing back from the dead.
Media,
ironically,
it's going to be on Entertainment Tonight. It's going to be all over YouTube for months. It's just going to be the talk of the town and the revival of the church, and I'm just not here for it.
So bad. Did you read what it's about?
No. I just don't understand how do you have a sequel after he's already dead and then raised? Like that's the end.
It's going to be about the 3 days while he's dead, what the disciples were doing during that time.
It's not really a sequel. It's like an intermission.
That's not in the Bible. So they're going to be making so much shit up. At least with the first one.
That's a good point. I didn't realize. Yeah, it's not in the Bible.
It's Christian fan fiction.
Their Passion 2 will be Christian fan fiction.
Anti-Semitic. Wow. And Caviezel is a hardcore QAnon, by the way. If anyone doesn't know that. So
he went off his walker. Okay, wait. I highlighted this because I wanted to talk about it. I like this question. So where is the Lilith dogma coming from exactly? I hear about her all the time from people who got their religious info from watching Supernatural. But I don't have any direct sources. Good question. So Lilith is a Jewish mystic figure. It comes after the Old Testament, but slightly before the New Testament-ish. It's in like the 200s, 200 AD, I think, is when you see the writings around Jewish people speaking on Lilith and really starting to make and build out her story. So it's not part of the Hebrew Bible, but it is part of the Hebrew folk traditions. So you do see a mention of Lilith in the Hebrew Bible, in the older text, but as Lilith, which is a mythical creature that we don't know what it's supposed to be. A lot of people have said based on the region of the desert and the way that she's described screeching like a Lilith, that maybe it was an owl-like figure. And that owl-like figure, that thing they are afraid of in the dark, kind of became anthropomorphized and was then turned into a legend, just like we do with all cultures, where if you're bad, Lilith is going to come and seduce you, and she steals kids in the middle of the night. So that's how her whole thing started. She's like a boogeyman for Jewish people, where like La Leona. God, I can't do my double L's. La Iona, same kind of thing. She'll come and take your kids. That's Lilith. So because of that, and because of the description, what's the word I'm looking for? Where two things don't match. I don't know. So in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, we have two different creation narratives because there's the source J writing and there's a source P writing. So in the first chapter, essentially God makes man and woman at the same time. They're equal. And whereas in chapter 2, he makes Adam and then makes Eve from Adam. So there's two different stories, and people have often, in the mythic, where did this person come from realm, said, well, Lilith was the first person that was mentioned in Genesis 1 when God made two equal beings. Lilith was there, and essentially the myth and the lore goes like this, that she wanted sexual power and sexual freedom, and she wanted to be on top. And because Adam felt emasculated, he didn't want to be with her. So she was like, bye, I'm going to leave the garden. And as doing so, she was not part of the entire sin and getting kicked out of the garden as everyone else is. So she was able to be eternal. She's immortal, and she pops in and steals your children when she wants. But she demanded equality in the sexes. And that's why they say in chapter 2, Adam's already alive at this point. That's why God took from Adam and made a woman that would be submissive to him because she is a part of him. So that, in a nutshell, is the mythology and lore of Lilith. That was off the top of my head, so sorry.
I'm impressed, honestly.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna be wrapping it up here soon. We got 10 minutes. It's 10 for you, I know. Sorry, it's only 7 o'clock for me. Who you saying love is, dude? It's the same for us as it is to you. Huh? Who you saying love is, dude? You're gonna have to rephrase that. I'm sorry, I don't know. Discrepancy
I
is the
feel
way.
like the rap career is not really working out, man.
Yes, the rap career needs to change its moment.
The meter is off, you know.
I just wanted to highlight this comment. Yes, all the Greeks were gay as fuck. I don't know if Mother is still in here, but I started reading the Song of Achilles because Mother really liked it, and then they went to Greece just because of that book, really. And it's okay. I'm like 70% of the way through, and I was like, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. It's nice to have some, like, you know, gay, young adult, Greek-themed stuff. Any woman who is independent and won't submit and leaves him isn't going to be bitter about her ex and his new woman, nor go after kids. Past, present, future, she gives no fucks. She's too busy winning.
I want to hear Reba McEntire write a song about Lilith now.
That would be great.
Am I right?
Yes. Having a Lilith song from Reba, especially if it comes with this kind of energy like Ferrari here was using. Like, no. She's not crying after leaving Adam. She is on. She has no kids. She's a free woman. She's not going to come stealing your kids because she does not want your kids. I like that. I think we should update the new Lilith mythology to that. But
I mean, isn't that basically Mel Tree Fitty, though?
yeah,
That is actually true.
I don't want no kids.
Wait,
that's funny.
I have never seen Mel and the actual Lilith in the same room together.
Wait.
Just saying.
Conspiracy.
Hey, look. Okay,
It's really trying to
I'll
get me
admit
to
that.
invite all these people.
I'll be
to
your
join
Alex
my live.
Jones.
I'm sorry, declining. We're live on YouTube. Come over here if you want to chat. And we have streamed multiple people streaming.
I sing a mob who steals your
What was I gonna say? That reminded me of something, and I really wanted to get into it.
What, Reba?
Her story where God made a woman with 3 boobs, and she said that she did not need the third, so he made man. Accurate. That sounds good.
Blade Runner lore.
I had something I wanted to fill up on. Anyway, I guess maybe we should just start wrapping it up. It's been about 2 hours. Unless anyone has last minute questions, throw them in. Go ahead.
Does Jesus enjoy CrossFit?
Me personally, no. I don't like working out, and I imagine Jesus would be the same.
I agree, actually. Jesus didn't really strike me as the kind of person who would like, have like a routine or like a workout thing, just kind of.
Nah. I was watching the new Netflix documentary about Kai, the hatchet-wielding homeless man. I don't know if that's his
As you
full
do,
title.
yeah.
But yeah, I imagine him like Jesus. Not because like he was very Jesus in quality, but like just the like, he's just a traveler, happy being a traveler. He goes and talks to people, 50 people at a time, and just like, hey guys, I'm from Nazareth. I'm happy to be in Galilee. What's up? And then just mobies on to the next place. Like I don't see him.
Curses a fig tree in every town, just like it's
He's
like the
just
opposite
doing
of
it.
Johnny Appleseed,
Yeah. Okay, being gay is freaking fantastic. 1000%. Bible 2 dropping. It already did. It's called the Book of Mormon. You are so behind.
Oh, God.
And the Book of Mormon, like, there's part 3 to the Bible, Joe.
Fun fact: the original version of the Book of Mormon was pasted to fanfiction.net.
In the 1800s.
Yeah, exactly. It was Pony Express. It was really fast back then.
Do you think Jesus cursing the fig tree is funny? I do, but I want to do a skit because people have always asked me to do a skit about the fig tree. But I also want to do like my metaphorical interpretation of it because I said it in somebody's live once, and they're like, "I never realized that's what it meant," and I was like, "How could you not realize what the metaphor is?"
Wait, what's the metaphor?
I have to read it directly, but essentially it's a metaphor for the conversations that they were having like in a chapter previously about works versus the result of your works. And so he is not cursing the fig tree. He's cursing his lazy ass disciples and not having good results from the way that they're spreading the gospel or spreading the message. So he's not angry at a fig tree. He's angry at the disciples bearing no good fruit. And he curses them that they will be going to hell if their life does not produce positivity. If it does not have a good result, then what's the point? The entire tree should be barren.
You see, I have this because I can write fan fiction too. I have this whole like drama played out and everything where the fig tree was like right there at Jesus's birth and was like the only thing that didn't give him gifts or something. And there's just like this whole storyline where this fig tree is constantly like looming over him until one day he's like, fuck this fig tree in particular, and it dies. And
so like the original, like with the Shel Silverstein story of like the giving tree.
I would love to read that. I think that needs to be written down, and I think we need to read it. This is disgusting. Okay, Mary. Your name is Mary. That's disgusting. What happened to 200 people? I don't know what you mean. True. Context. If we can't be homophobic, why are you allowed to disrespect the way, truth, and the life, bruh? Because let's get into it. I don't have a lot of time to get into it. We'll just glaze over it.
5 minutes, so.
Okay, let's put you on shout. If we can't be homophobic, why are you allowed to disrespect? First of all, that's some whiny ass shit, Mary.
Right?
But like, why do you want to be homophobic? What do you mean? If we can't, you can. You're doing it. No one's stopping you from being homophobic. You're very well on your way.
Oh, I just muted them, so I'm absolutely stopping her from being homophobic. But
well, I mean, like, you're not going to take away her personal weird belief systems. So that is what it is. But no, I'm not disrespecting anybody, because if I were to disrespect somebody, it would be calling you out directly, like we are now. Once you've earned my disrespect, you will know. And outside of that, it's think of it like this. Why am I not allowed to hate people, but you're allowed to interpret religion differently than me? Like, that's how it should be phrased. And when you put it like that, it's just dumb. You shouldn't hate people because hating people is bad. That includes homophobia. That includes Islamophobia. That includes whatever you would call Christian phobia. But there's not really a word for it because it doesn't really happen because you're not disenfranchised. But hating people is bad. Discussing religion is not the same thing as hating people. Even if you wanted to discuss a certain act that say like, oh, Abraham was messed up for even thinking about sacrificing Isaac. Criticizing him and his choices, or criticizing him and his choices. It's not disrespectful to discuss. And when we get into these ways of
Well, not only that, but
false
the
comparisons, I don't know what the word
implication
is.
here is a homophobic
Mhm.
implication because they are saying that you are being disrespectful because you are gay.
Because I am gay.
Being gay is not disrespectful. It is
Yeah.
not.
And then there's
is
that.
homophobia. That is in its core you believing that there is something inherently disrespectful about gay people, and that can go shove it because we are human beings and we exist. And King
that's
James
it.
thought Jesus was gay, so suck it.
But like,
Also, Joshua down there in the chat, per your last comment, joke's on you, I'm the straight one. But anyway.
yeah, and it's just it's sad that people want to be proud about hatred. I find that very confusing because these are the people, Joshua, who think that they have some kind of moral superiority to other people. You think that you are Christian through and through, and I am just so good. My God's gonna love me. I'm the best. It's very pick me, but at the same time, you have that kind of realization, and yet you're awful to people. So whereas we are sitting here saying, don't disrespect anyone, you are judging us for being kind to people. That's bizarre. Your judgment that we're too kind, that we accept gay people, that we accept trans people, that we accept immigrants. That's what you see as the problem, is the acceptance is the problem. And yet you think that your hatred should be given an award. That's fucked up. That is backwards, and you need therapy. If that's what you think God is, or if that's what you think a good citizen is to their brothers and neighbors, with or without God commanding it, you have issues. You should not be proud of your homophobia. I'm glad you recognize it, because now you can work on it.
True.
Well, so in John 3:17, it says that Jesus didn't come to condemn the world, but to save it through grace. So if Jesus didn't come to condemn us, why the fuck are you?
There's that. Yeah, you have no right to judge. It is not. It's actually
Right,
sinful
like-
for you to personify a priest and or somebody who should have the right to judge. So unless you're those things, you're cosplaying as somebody who has important opinions when you do not. All right. Let's see. Okay, so no fanfics. I hate when someone from any religion screams at people. Yeah, and also your religion doesn't get to dictate other lives. Like, I don't care if the Bible in big black, red, and white letters said all gay people should be burned and abortions any day but Sundays on the third trimester. Like, if I don't care how detailed the instructions are, if it showed up in the Bible, it would still not be an honorable thing to listen to it. Because your religion doesn't get to overdo other people's lives. Your religion isn't more important than anyone else's religion. And as my TikTok said today, every single existing and non-existing religion was built on another belief first. So to think that you have the original or the right or the most up-to-date information is pompous of you, especially when you think that would be hate. I don't understand how you accept hate as the defaults. It should never be the defaults. Yes, I've read the Percy Jackson books. I've seen that like 4 times. I have.
Because
Yes.
And I feel like probably out of any of us, maybe Chad would relate to this the most. Sorry, I keep calling you Chad or Chadish.
Chad's fine.
Because I, from like the moment that I can remember having cognitive thought, was told that Jesus loved me. And people who were raised in fundamental Christian circles are not taught that Jesus loves them. They are taught that they have to worship God and submit to his authority because he is God. And if they don't, that they are going to hell. So it is not the like, Jesus loves you as you are, and maybe, you know, we all have sin and we all have stuff that we're working on, and here's the Bible and this says how to be a holy person. This is the way that you live your life, because if you don't, you burn for eternity in hell and you might get raptured at any moment. So like, this is actually the stuff that you grew up in, Arch, so I'll share more. But like, they don't teach about the love because they weren't taught the love.
No, you're right, and it's spot on. Like, in an even more fucked up situation there is that we were taught that this idea that a divine being was like literally asking us to change ourselves into the image of whatever preacher just happened to be telling you what Christ's image was that particular week. Like, we were taught that that was love. We were taught that we were just so completely desperately wicked and everything that we had to change in order to be to be acceptable, and that changing process was love. And I saw a lot of my friends, like the people who had the worst in it, the worst of it in the fundamentalism I grew up in, of course, were women and LGBTQ plus people in particular. They were just they had the most miserable time because they were constantly told that that they had to change themselves. They had to conform to this particular image. And to come into, someone's chat and to tell someone, just because that they exist, that their very presence insults you is fucked up. That is not love, no matter what you've been told. I'm here to tell you, as someone who left all that behind, like, it is the opposite of that. And to perpetuate that only hurts more people. And if you want to hurt more people, like, I'm sorry, but yeah, you're gonna end up way more alone than you think you will.
I tweeted about that today as well. I was like, I don't understand evangelicals' obsession with wanting to see people in pain, with wanting to see them hurt. Like, they say they will celebrate the day when your judgment comes and you're sent to hell. Like, excuse you. Like, they found a socially acceptable way to make their hate allowable. Like, they are just bad people. And they think that, or they're bad people, and they get to disguise themselves and feel better about themselves because they're doing it in a righteous way. You're just hateful, and you're just petty, and you're just a bad person. Saying, but I'm a Christian, doesn't take that away. If you are wanting people's harm, strangers, or even people
Well,
that's not okay. You need to work on yourself. It does not make you more righteous. It does not make you more godly. It's very sad, and I am concerned for the people around you.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that, one of the big misconceptions, because like one of the things that drives me crazy is when I will hear people say, well, you're more Christ-like than Christians. Like, because I'm an atheist. So, whenever I hear that, and I'm like, I know that your intentions are good because you're meaning to say that I'm a good and a kind person, but Christianity, throughout history, has not been good and kind. And health theology is not kind.
No.
Like,
original sin, teaching people that they had no chance from the start. You were born evil. Sorry, baby. That's harmful. Like, nothing about the way that current Christianity does in terms of the way it operates in this dogma that's not even in the Bible. Cough, cough, original sin, cough, cough, eternal conscious torment. These things aren't even in the scripture, and it's been weaponized against people. That's what it is. That's where we're at with specifically evangelical Christianity and Catholic Christianity as well. So I want to get wrapping it up here because we're about 30 minutes over. Chrissy, I know you were late, but you can rewind and watch. But I really want to say thank you to everyone for hanging out with me. Thank you for getting to the 10K mark. And I am going to be spending a lot more time over here than over there because it's easier to have conversations here, I think. Even though I get a lot of negative comments, that's never been my issue. I'm not running from negative comments. It's the fact that
I don't know how
30 people over on TikTok will take down my entire account so I get 0 comments, and I can't interact with 0 comments. So stop searching me. If you don't want to watch me, don't watch me. Stop coming to my page just to search me, just to say, I don't want to be here. So I can go back to FIPs.
That's the funniest shit in the world to me is when people will be like, when I'll look at your stuff and they'll be like, why do I keep seeing this guy? Or why does TikTok keep showing me this? And you're like, because you're commenting, because you're interacting with the content. The algorithm thinks this is something you want to see and want to interact with.
And half the time I was never on their FYP in the first place because I had my FYP set up with my, like, you know, gay and black girlies.
You
And now
have
it's going to the wrong
1,000 more.
places because they search me intentionally. Somebody makes a stitch about me and then they go looking up my name just a bitch. And now they're stuck with me. And I'm like, I don't want you here either.
11,600.
I know.
That's actually why I initially came in. I did want to tell you, in all seriousness, like, your content is such quality. I learned a lot from it personally. I know a lot of other people do. And the fact that you've hit 10,000 plus so quickly on this platform, and that you're, you know, so far killing it, and that you're reaching even more people, you know, through this live and others, that is well deserved. And I just want to say congratulations. For real.
Aww. I have it on tape. You can never take it back. Thank you.
True.
And that's what I was gonna say in my wrap up too. Is just like, thank you for everyone. I want to just give you again like a little outro of things that we have going on. So my next project, I have 50 people signed up to talk about religious trauma, and I think that's going to be my focus in the new year. Is really
Why haven't I been asked, bitch?
It's a friends only video, but I'll open it up. Like, you should have seen it, but I'll obviously open it up to you as well. I need to get the calendar together. We did a poll on this YouTube
Of all
channel.
ways to find this out, courageous. I'm just saying.
It's gonna be Saturdays and Sundays. Last week I was not prepared, but I was gonna have I Blame Bill be the first guest last week. Ooh. And it just went right over my head. I didn't know she's scheduled. So I'm gonna fix the scheduling system, send it back out to everybody, and get tuned for that, because I think that's what we're going to do. Is we're going to talk to some people who you might recognize, like I Blame Bill, and then also talk to people who I haven't ever even heard their stories. I know I have a friend who has DID, who wants to talk about religious trauma that gave them DID and gave them their multiples from the religious trauma. And like, there's so many stories out there that I think we can do a lot, even if it's not something you can relate to. I think people logging in will be good to know, like, oh, it's not just me struggling with these ideas or concepts. I don't know. I want to do like more social change. That's what I'm getting at. Stick around. We might have a New York Times article coming out soon. Nice. I didn't want to announce it because if it get cut, then that sucks. Kind of like the Trevor Project thing I was supposed to do, where they just stopped emailing me after 2 interviews. That sucked. And then, yeah, maybe I'm working on a book soon. I had my literary agent meeting yesterday. So this year is going to be freaking baller. Thank you all for being here. We're going to, in the middle of all that, do more long form YouTube content because, again, ditching TikTok because people are children, and trying to move everybody I like over to this platform. And if you ever see anybody, the one thing I ask for you in New Year, for my followers, even if you're new here, don't just like be complacent. Don't let people walk over other people. I see a lot of really trashy comments come through, and I invite all of you to stick up in a public way so that other people who are reading it feel better about it. Because I can't imagine what it would be like to be a 14-year-old kid in this world right now and reading comment after comment after comment of adults attacking another gay man. And that must be terrifying to a 13-year-old to read. So I want more people to interact on comments and say, hey, that's not okay. That way, when those 14-year-olds are reading the comments, they'll be like, oh, there's people here calling that shit out. It's not just negativity. So that's my New Year's resolution, request, demand of everybody on social. See something, say something. Don't let it slide. Okay, that's my speech. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, good job, you guys. Well, you helped me. Okay.
Golden Globes right there.
Okay, and that's it. I think we're wrapping it up. I think that's all. I have to go eat dinner.
Thank you.
7:30. Thank you for being on. And Captain, wherever you are, sleeping, smoking a cigar, thank you for being on as well. And everyone in the comments, thank you for joining me. And it's gonna be a good year. We're gonna do stuff, whatever that stuff is. All right. Bye.
Have fun. Bye.